Number 1. Old farmhouse. In this house, I experienced the most paranormal activity. My parents and younger brother all witnessed these events, so I know they are true. My dad's a cop and at this point was working all of the terrible rotating shifts that all new rookies would be given. This meant that my mom was often at home alone with us kids, especially at night. Little things started happening at first. Picture frames would swing on the walls like someone had brushed their hands against them. Lights would go on and off for no reason. We would hear footsteps upstairs when no one else was home. And our dog would get locked in random rooms without explanation. The first truly terrifying experience we had was when my brother was around 3. He was tucked in for the night while my mom and I watched TV. I had gone into his room with my mom to say goodnight and had watched her close the window, place the rocking chair near his bed, close the door and turn off the lights. We went down to the TV and heard whispering noises coming from the baby monitor she had in his room. As we listened more, we heard a loud shriek and banging noises. We both rocketed up from the couch and ran to his room. The light was on, the rocking chair was next to the now open window rocking back and forth, and the door was wide open. I had never seen my mom so terrified before. My brother was fast asleep under the covers and was far too small to ever move the rocking chair himself. After that night, I had terrible night terrors where I would wake everyone up screaming and throwing things. I would sleepwalk and talk to someone in my closet called Sally, and would hear voices all day, every day. My parents witnessed objects moving around with no visible cause, would hear the voices talking back to me while I was sleepwalking, and would hear me talking in a low, guttural voice that was not my own. The event that made us move was when we had gone out for groceries in midwinter after a fresh snowfall. We were about an hour getting groceries, so there was enough snow to cover all our footprints. My dad had closed and locked the front door, had turned off the lights, and because it was winter, the windows were all closed and locked. Some of the windows were even painted shut. When we got back from groceries, every single window was open. Music was blasting from the stereo, the front door was off its hinges, and the lights were all on. At this point, my dad told us to stay in the car while he called a buddy of his on shift to help him clear the house. As my dad went up to the house, he noticed that there were absolutely no footprints leading to or from the door. None in the yard or backyard either. There was no one in the house and no signs of anyone ever being there. The most terrifying part of this event was that the painted windows had been ripped open. The wood had splintered and we all agreed that no human could have the strength to do that. On top of being painted shut, my dad had also nailed some shut too to avoid a draft. These windows were opened as well. We moved after that, and I believe that whatever was in that house followed me to the next 5 places. Number 2. Tiny city home. At this house, we didn't experience anything too frightening until the end of our stay there. Little things happened throughout the first 3 years that spooked us a bit, but were harmless. Light switches would click on and off while we watched. The dog would bark and growl at nothing in corners and at the ceiling. My dad would always lose his keys and they would show up in the crawl space that we had under the house. I was always terrified of that crawl space. None of us would ever go near it without someone else being there. When I would sleepwalk, I would always end up in the crawl space with the lights off. After the first 3 years, my mom got really sick and almost died 3 times on the operating table. With all the stress of watching her go through this, whatever was in the house got stronger and more bold. We would wake up to find pictures of our family smashed or on the ground, scratches on the door to the crawl space, and would see shadow figures out the corner of our vision. Once, when I was taking a bath, I was held under the water by my head from what felt like a hand. I knocked all the bottles off the tub, which alerted my dad. He came in and swears up and down to this day that he saw a disembodied hand holding me under. After my brother got pushed down the stairs, we finally decided to move. Number 3. Country haven home. My parents never saw the house before they bought it. It was cheap and close to my dad's new posting, and that's all that mattered. My parents currently still live there. It has 5 levels, including 2 basement levels. I only lived at this house for 3 years, but I had multiple frightening experiences that still haunt me. The most notable was when I was home alone with my dog. I was watching TV in the basement and decided to get a snack. I left my dog laying on the couch sleeping. As soon as I hit the kitchen, I heard Charlie barking and snarling at something in the basement. He had never made those sounds before, so I was rightly scared crapless. I called my dad and begged him to come home because I thought someone was in the house. He told me to run out the front door and go to the neighbours. The problem with that was that I would have to run past the basement and whatever was down there to get to the front door. Even running to the side door had the same issue, so I booked it. As I ran past the basement, I saw a shadowy figure standing in front of my dog. Charlie had all the hair on his back standing up. When Charlie saw me running, he hightailed it out of there too and joined me at the neighbours. My dad came home with his gun and went through the house. No one was there. A few days after that experience, I moved out to go to university. My parents haven't had any paranormal experiences since I moved out. Number 4, dorms. In the dorms I lived in, it was apartment style. We lived in a 5-bedroom detached house. I had 4 roommates, 2 bathrooms and a kitchen for us to cook in. All of my roommates experienced their own paranormal events while living with me here. One of them didn't believe in ghosts before, but now does. We would hear people talking in the vents when we were all in the common area not talking. The scariest conversation we heard coming from the vents was someone screaming at their friend to F off. We were all sitting in the kitchen not talking because we were eating. No one else was in the house with us, and we all ran from the house and sat on the porch until it was time to go to bed. My one roommate experienced her alarm going off at 3 a.m. every morning for the entire year. Even when it was unplugged with no batteries, it would go off. All of us would see creepy shadows and people walking through the house and up the stairs. One roommate had her boyfriend run out the house at 4 a.m. scared crapless. He never told us what happened and he never came back. Our landlord at one point thought we had an illegal 6th person staying with us because she would always see someone staring out of the attic window. The attic that was always locked. The worst experience at this house was when all 5 of us were standing in the kitchen and we heard laughing coming from the vents. As we were frozen listening, the fridge door whipped open and the kettle turned on simultaneously. We all stayed in our cars that night. Number 5 and 6, my own 2 apartments. I decided to move into my own apartment for the duration of school because of health issues and the activity that scared all my roommates. I had to move from the first apartment about 3 months in because I found black mold. My landlord moved me to a different unit. In the first apartment, I only experienced light switches going on and off, my kettle being turned on in the middle of the night, and noises I couldn't explain. In my current apartment, however, I've recently been experiencing feelings of heaviness, and I'm terrified constantly. It feels like someone mean is watching me and wants me to fail. Because of COVID, I'm now confined to my apartment and working from home. In multiple Zoom meetings, my coworkers have asked me who is in the room with me. I'm alone. I have no pets or roommates, but my coworkers swear up and down that they see someone walking back and forth in the frame. I've had clients ask who else is talking to me because they can hear someone in the background speaking. My boyfriend has noticed me talking to someone in my sleep while I'm sitting up in bed. My boyfriend had an experience that changed his mind completely about ghosts. He was sitting at the kitchen table while I was cooking and heard someone yell into his ear to get out. He freaked out and turned around just to have a potted plant thrown at his head. He refuses to stay at my place and tries to limit the amount of time I spend at his to avoid inviting whatever is attached to me into his place. The night after my friend cleansed my place, I was startled awake by feeling something jumping onto the bed. I flipped on the light and saw that one of my slippers had been thrown approximately 4 feet across the apartment onto my bed. I left the lights on and prayed until I fell asleep again. When I woke up in the morning, clothes, shoes, and papers were scattered around my previously clean apartment. For that day and night, I didn't experience anything else. I figured whatever my friend did helped. About 3 days after the cleansing, I was standing in my kitchen cooking when I heard scratching coming from the wall next to me. For context, that wall light leads directly into my closet. I opened the closet door expecting to see a mouse or rat, but instead, I found a tidy closet with nothing pushed against the wall. The wall is thin, basically just a sheet of drywall, so there was definitely nothing in the wall. The entire time I was cooking, the scratching continued and got louder. I turned on some music and tried to ignore it. That night, I felt something crawling up my bed, almost like a cat or a dog would. I have neither of these in my apartment. I had left the kitchen light on so I could see my room pretty well. I could see imprints of whatever was walking up my bed towards me. I freaked out and ran to the living room. I slept on the couch that night. My co-workers are still experiencing something walking in my camera during Zoom calls, and my clients have begun hearing whispering voices on my end of the phone, even when I'm home alone. The final experience that I've had since the cleansing was when I was sleeping over at my boyfriend's place. I had begged him to come and pick me up after the experience with the scratching. I had brought Missy with me and we were all cuddled up in his bed watching TV. My boyfriend fell asleep and I had turned off the TV when I heard some muffled footsteps outside his bedroom door. He has roommates, so I brushed it off and went to sleep. At around 3 a.m, my boyfriend sat straight up in bed and looked at the bedroom door. We've been dating for 2 years now and have been friends for 4. I have never once witnessed him sleepwalking or sleep talking, but this night, he was talking to something in the hallway. He was saying things like, "No, you need to leave now," or "You can't stay here." He turned to me at one point and said, "He's here for you, in the hallway." I was understandably freaked and tried to wake him up. He kept saying, "He's here, he's in the hallway, and you can't escape." I finally woke him up and asked him what was wrong and who was here, and he just said, "You should leave," and then fell back asleep. In the morning, when I asked him who was there, he shrugged and said he had a dream that someone was in the hallway asking for me, and he agreed to let them talk to me. I have no clue what was going on, but the fact that my boyfriend invited whatever it was into his bedroom freaks me out. His roommate helped me cleanse the house the next day. My boyfriend has now started having scratching noises in the house, and his roommates have all claimed to hear voices when no one's home. I haven't had any experiences myself since the incident at my boyfriend's. We are currently looking into bringing my parish priest in to bless us on my apartment. Whatever it is isn't violent, and it doesn't seem threatening, but it is very terrifying. Many of you suggested using a Ouija board or something else to talk to it, but I feel like that would make it worse and give it more energy to torment me. My mother had a bad Ouija board experience when she was young, and so did my father, so I'll never touch it. Hopefully, my new daily regimen will help. I don't think I've been doing it for long enough to make a difference. Things started happening again pretty slowly. It started with some odd noises such as scratching, banging, and what sounded like footsteps in the hallway. A few weeks after the cleansing, my boyfriend and I were getting photos taken by my parents. When we look at the photos afterwards, my dad pointed out what looked like a man in the background. The photo was mysteriously deleted from my parents' camera along with several others. It continued to escalate to the point where I was being dragged out of bed in the middle of the night by my feet, and my boyfriend was being touched and scratched by whatever was in my apartment. One night when I had my boyfriend over, we heard some scratching at the door. We paused to listen and could hear a male voice muttering to themselves on the other side of the door. We could hear the lock and the door handle jingling and rattling. My boyfriend went to look out of my peephole and saw a dirty old homeless man fiddling with my lock. We called the police because my boyfriend said that he was outside my door with a knife and a screwdriver. When the police arrived, the man was no longer there. They took us to the main office of our apartment complex and requested to see the security footage. I wish I had taken a video of what we saw. Even the police had no explanation. On the tapes, you could see an old man step off the elevator and walk to my door. You could clearly see he had a weapon of some sort in both hands. He stopped at my door and stared at it for at least 10 minutes. He kept tilting his head as though he was listening to something. Then, he began scratching at the door with what looked to be a knife. This is when it got even scarier. Two police are then seen coming off the elevator and turning towards my door. They walk right to the door where the man is still standing and walk right past him. They swear up and down that the man was not at the door when they came. The thing that scared us the most was that while my boyfriend and I was chatting with the police with the door open, the man brushed past us all and went inside my apartment. None of us saw the man standing right next to the police for the 10 minutes we were stood chatting with them. No one saw him enter the apartment. The tapes clearly show a man, however we saw nothing. After seeing what was on the tapes, the cops and my boyfriend were rightly scared as heck. The cops called for backup to search the complex, while they then went and searched my apartment for the man. Nobody found anything. The only evidence that the man was there was of the tapes and scratches on the door. The only thing the police could do for me was tell me to move out. I've never seen a scared police officer before, and I hope to never see it again. I'm planning on moving out in February due to having to give 3 months' notice. After the incident with the police, I began hearing things and seeing things out of the corner of my eye again. And no matter how much incense I burn or how hard I pray, I still feel scared witless. My lights have been turning out daily. My devices have been glitching and making weird noises, and my neighbours complain of me screaming even when I'm not at home. I've started working from the office again and even had some experiences there too. The most memorable experience I had at work was when my co-worker and I were on a conference call with my management team. We both kept hearing noises. The tea kettle kept turning on and off, the lights kept flickering, and my management team kept asking who was in the office with us. They were quite mad when they thought they were just 3 of us in the office because of COVID restrictions. We are only allowed to be 2 people in the office at a time. My co-worker and I swore up and down that there wasn't even a janitor in the building with us. One of our managers even got a picture of what it looked like a tall man standing behind me and my partner. I will post it on here later if I can. She can't send the photo for some reason and it keeps getting deleted. Luckily, she has an iPhone and can go into her deleted photos to recover it. Every time she looks at the photo, it makes her glowing glitch and turn off. My boyfriend and I recently moved into a new apartment after experiencing some crazy paranormal activity in our last apartment. This apartment is larger and newer than our last. It's a recently built 1-year-old condo building in a quiet part of the city, away from traffic and noise. It's the only building for 3 kilometers in either direction. We're on the top floor, so we don't have to listen to neighbors upstairs, and we have no neighbors beside us. The whole complex sits adjacent to a forest with multiple trails and a large lake. We thought it was paradise. The first month we were there, we had no paranormal occurrences and no suspicious activity. Our cat wasn't reacting to empty space like she had been before. My boyfriend and I were sleeping better and hiking all the time. We enjoyed the patio a lot and even had a little garden room for our plants. We hadn't needed my cousin to cleanse the place since we'd moved in, so we were very positive about finally being free of ghosts and demons. When we got comfortable, that's when the activity started again. It started small as it always does, with missing keys, shifted furniture, the cat being touched by something, and of course, small noises like scratching and tapping. We ignored it the best we could. We made noise in our space and stayed positive throughout all the new experiences. One night, we couldn't ignore it any longer. We had opened the closet in the hallway to fold some sheets we had washed when the door was ripped out of my boyfriend's hand and slammed shut. We had all of our windows and doors closed and didn't have any air conditioning on. When we tried to open it again, it wouldn't budge. There was no lock on this door, so we assumed it was jammed. We wedged it open with a screwdriver, and when we did, we saw little scratches on the bottom of the door that weren't there before. That was the point where my boyfriend and I called my cousin to do another cleansing. During the cleansing, you could hear rapid tapping on the ceiling. We have no upstairs neighbours as we're at the top floor, and heavy breathing from the linen closet. When she was finished and she told us that she felt like we were in danger, this made us very paranoid and upset. The next thing to happen made us both sick to our stomachs. We were asleep on the couch after watching a movie when the door of the linen closet directly beside the TV whipped open. All of the linens fell out the floor and the door fell off its hinge. For context, the linens were all in labelled plastic tubs that were hanging on the wall on a metal bar. The tubs were not moved when the sheets and towels were tossed onto the floor, nor was the bar. Ever since then, we've had the closet door swing open and closed randomly and had towels and sheets thrown all around. My boyfriend swears that he can see a dark shadow in the shape of a small person in the corner of the closet when it opens and closes. The cat won't even go near the door and has confined herself to the back bedroom. At night, we can hear scratching on the door and banging coming from the walls. Last night was horrible too. We were in bed trying to sleep when we heard a massive bang coming from the closet. My boyfriend was fed up at this point and screamed at it to shut up so we could sleep. We saw a black head-shaped figure poke out from the corner of the door frame. It had red eyes and was solid black. We couldn't see through it. We freaked out and slept in our car with the cat. This morning, we went in to make breakfast and found most of the apartment torn apart. Nothing was damaged except a few photo frames, luckily. We're glad we brought the cat with us. It looks as if the demon thing has found us again and now threatens to terrorize us in our new apartment. I'm hoping that we'll continue to be safe from physical harm as long as possible, but it's not likely. When my grandma left my abusive grandpa, many years before I was born, she moved herself and two of her three daughters, my mom and aunt, into a new house. My aunt met a guy and they started dating. He was what you would call a greaser, hot rod driving, leather jacket wearing, greased, black haired having dude. This would have been the early 70s. Most nights he would park down the street and walk to her bedroom window, tap on it, and she would let him through it. Her bedroom was at the back of the house, and the driveway was gravel, and it went past my mom's bedroom. My mom told me every time he did it, she would hear his boots crunching in the gravel as he walked by. They would do whatever they did, and he'd climb back out of the window and leave. Somehow, she eventually met who would become my uncle, and they're still married. And she broke things off with the guy. He didn't take it well. One night he stopped by and tapped on the window. She let him in and they talked for over an hour, and he left. The phone rang in the living room and she went out to answer it. Her friend was on the other end, sobbing. She told my aunt that he had killed himself. He drove around in his hot rod with a buddy, drinking liquor and shooting mailboxes. They pulled into a convenience store parking lot and he shot himself in the face, killing himself. My aunt said that was impossible as he had just left her house. She looked up and saw him standing outside, staring at her through the living room window, with blood all over his face. She screamed, woke everyone in the house, and he disappeared. My aunt told them that night what had gone on. That was the only time she ever spoke about it. I've asked her a couple times to tell me, and she wouldn't. Grandma and Mum eventually told me about it years later at different times. From then on, my mum would hear his boots crunching in the gravel every night, and my aunt would hear him tap on the window. It got so bad for my aunt that she begged my mom to switch rooms. They did, and my mom heard the tapping on the window. Also, my grandma told me they'd always find his brand of cigarette butts in the ashtrays and only he smoked them. A few other things that happened in that house before they moved. Like my grandma woke up one morning an inch from the ceiling. When she screamed, the bed fell back to the floor. Back in 2008 or so, I happened to deliver pizza to that house. I asked the woman if anything strange went on there, and she froze. She said the back room window got tapped on all the time, as well as knocking on the side door. Even though the driveway was paved, she heard what sounded like boots on it all the time. Her husband worked nights, so he didn't believe her or the kids, but she said almost every night, something happened there. I was living with my grandma at the time for a number of reasons. I was only 18 or 19 then, and my grandpa had passed away a couple years before, leaving her in a two-family house all by herself. When I found out she was lonely and I needed a place to stay, when she offered to let me live with her, I happily accepted. I lived in the second family space. My grandfather had built the house back in the 30s and sometime later had added the big addition on the back so his daughter from his first marriage could live there for a while. I didn't change much of anything when I moved in. The furniture all stayed, which at that point was just a couch, love seat, two chairs and some end tables with lamps on them. I only had my clothes and a small TV to bring. I laid a spare mattress she had on the floor between the couch and my TV. There was about a foot of space on either side of the mattress to the couch to my left and the TV to my right. I had my own door and stairs that went down to the basement. At the bottom of the steps was a small landing, the door into the basement, and a screen door to the right of it that went outside. The steps were concrete. I'm not sure when or why it started, but one night as I tried to fall asleep, I heard the door handle on the door at the bottom of the steps rattle, as if someone were trying to open it. I knew the sound it made well, because it was loose and rattled like that every time I opened the door to do laundry or whatever. I was scared that maybe someone had broken in, so I went to check it out and found nothing wrong and no one there. A few nights later I heard it again, and then again a few nights after that. I checked each time and still found nothing. Then I started hearing footsteps climbing the concrete stairs to the door and at the top of the steps, and then that handle would shake. It scared the hell out of me, because I was sure someone was there. Once again I checked, and once again I found nothing. The incidents became more and more frequent until it was happening every night. I quickly decided to not check every time, and I just lay there listening to it happen, until it would eventually stop and I'd fall asleep. Every now and then it would extend farther to include footsteps on the floor between me and my TV, which was almost always behind me, since I like to sleep on my right side facing the couch. One night I heard the floor there creak again, and I quickly spun my head around, expecting to see someone standing there. But once again, I saw nothing. I turned back around, laid my head down, and closed my eyes. And then, for whatever reason, I opened my eyes for a split second and shut them again. In that split second, I saw her. She was sitting on the couch, and though it was dark, I could see her well. Her skin was pale, and she was wearing a white nightgown that went to her knees. She had long, straight, white or blonde hair that hung past her shoulders, and her head was cocked to one side. I saw no face. I quickly opened my eyes again and screamed, but she was gone. That was the first night I heard any of those noises for a long time. It had lasted 6 months, the last 4 of which it had happened nightly. I heard the footsteps on the stairs a couple times after that, and the doorknob jiggled once or twice, but that was it, as far as that went. I was afraid to tell my grandma because I didn't want to scare her. When I finally did, she just nodded and said she saw shadow people all the time in the house, which I later saw myself when I was hanging out with her watching TV. She said the woman could have been my late grandpa's first wife, who had passed on many years before. That woman was mentally crazy and often walked the streets at night in a nightgown and bare feet. She would buy drugs from whomever. She also began going to church down the road that was one of Jim Jones's churches and wrote all kinds of big checks to them for their trip to Jonestown. Apparently, she also let them have meetings in that part of the house where I was living. When my grandfather found out about the money and craziness that went on in the church, he made us stop going. It was right before the members all went on their trip to Jonestown. I'm not sure what spirit or spirits haunted the house if it wasn't her, or why they would be there. Nothing was there before the house was built except farmland. Years later, my wife and I moved in there and we saw a couple of weird things. At the time, we had a red min pin, and I saw his backside rounding a corner and disappearing into the hall or another room, only to discover it wasn't him and nothing would be where I thought he was, numerous times. I have no idea what that was about. I also continued seeing shadow people. Currently, my mom lives there, though I haven't heard if anything has happened lately. For a while, my wife and I lived in that same space I used to stay while my mom lived in the main house. She once asked me if we had issues with things going missing, and if they ever turned up in different places. We did. I'm not sure if anything is going on now. I'll have to ask her. Back in the mid-70s, they got married and moved to Tennessee from Ohio. One New Year's Eve, they stayed with some friends. My mom says she doesn't even think they were drinking or smoking weed, which I find hard to believe, considering I know how they were back then. But if she says they weren't, they probably weren't. Both of them were laying on the floor watching TV, while their friends sat on the couch. Their young daughter was in bed, sleeping. My mom heard shuffling and looked over from the TV at the doorway to the hall, and saw a short female waking her way towards the bathroom. She was wearing a long, old-fashioned nightgown and a sleeping cap. My mom asked the friends where they had got their daughter that nightgown and cap, and said they were cute. They said their daughter didn't have a nightgown or cap, that she had pajamas. Mom looked at Dad and asked him if he had seen that, and he said he had. They checked the bathroom, and nobody was in it. There was nowhere else for anyone to go. They checked the bedroom, and the daughter was in bed sleeping, in her pajamas. The house sat down below the main road, which curved right as it got to the house and ran along in front of it. The friends told my parents that one night, somebody drove straight off the road and crashed through the roof into the living room, landed on the old lady, and killed her. It was her they saw.